Morning Grind with Pork Rinds.
Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thursday morning. It's Thirsty Thursday right here on the Morning Rant. Hey, welcome into the program. What's up, North Georgia? Dave Garner with you till 11 o'clock this morning, along with the Golden Boy, Will Cooper, joining me as well as we bring it to you from our Carriage Kia studios here in North Georgia. We are the home of ESPN Radio in North Georgia on the Sports Pig app and online at sportspigradio.com. And we've got an action-packed show today, man. Opening day for the Atlanta Braves looming tomorrow night at Truist Park as the Braves again open up with a couple of back-to-back home series to start the 2026 campaign. They are the Grapefruit League champions. Let's raise a banner. Let's get excited. Let's have something fun to talk about. No, but seriously, we will talk a lot about the Atlanta Braves today. Also, some NFL free agency news and the Atlanta Hawks. Man, you gotta like the direction they're headed. We'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. We're not going to spend a lot of time on that, but I will tell a little story there about last night watching some of that Hawks game. Of course, the MLB season opening up last night. It was the Yankees and Giants. And Coop, I was kind of fishing around on the networks. I was trying to get some stuff done outside while it was still daylight. And I come back in. I'm trying to find the game. And, it was later. I figured it'd be a West Coast, start, so it might be a little bit later in the evening. By the time I figured out where that thing was at and what streaming platform it was on, it was already 7-0 in the eighth inning, and I thought, the heck with it. I'm not even going to worry about pulling it up. So I guess that's kind of, what I want to start with this morning is your thoughts, first of all, because we talked about this yesterday with Big John Davis on the show, or we kind of touched on it. We're going to talk more about it on Monday. But nowadays, in order to be a fan of just about any team, you've got to pay for a Paramount subscription. You've got to pay for a Netflix subscription. You got to pay for Peacock. You've got to, you can't just watch games on normal network TV anymore throughout the course of a season. Even with our own Atlanta Braves, there was a lot of talk about where are these guys even going to be. They had to go out and create their own network over the last couple of weeks just to be able to have a TV partner or a place to put their games. So we are the official North Georgia home of the Atlanta Braves here at the Sports Pig and Sports Pig Radio. Also our sister station 101.1 The Pulse, which will be broadcasting live tomorrow afternoon from Truist Park. But Coop, man, welcome to the program. Want to get your thoughts on all that. First of all, did you watch the game last night? Did you even know it was on?
No. Yes, I did know it was on. I have no interest in watching the Yankees nor the Giants, even though it is baseball. I don't hate myself that much.
I figured you being a baseball fan, you would at least maybe tune in for a few minutes, but I guess that's why you're our Braves insider and not our Yankees insider. So
I'd definitely say I'm a Braves fan more than just a general baseball fan. I have a hard time watching baseball that is not the Braves. I think if you don't have that hometown connection, honestly, it's a pretty boring sport.
Yeah, and I get that. And I grew up in a different time. Obviously, you're a lot younger. I grew up with TBS, like a lot of people my age. I grew up with the Superstation. I grew up with Ted Turner and all his crazy, promotions and things that really eventually put the Braves in the spotlight. The teams were always so terrible, but people paid attention because they were broadcasted all over the nation. You had WTBS, which was the Braves. You had WOR out of New York, and you had WGN, which was the Cubs. And I grew up watching a lot of Chicago Cubs games simply because they didn't have lights at Wrigley back then growing up, so they played all their home games during the day. And when you're a kid, before you're old enough to drive and you're sitting at home in the summer with both parents working and you're sitting around the house, I would turn on WGN, I would turn on Cubs games and watch the Cubs all day, and kind of became a little bit of a fan of the Cubs, listening to, the legendary Harry Carey and Steve Stone, chopping it up in a broadcast booth, and got to watching those guys. But the Braves were branded as America's team because they were one of those teams that was broadcast all over the country. And I think that's why traditionally the Braves have such a following the way they do, is because of those early days with TBS. And now, of course, Turner got away from Braves. They started kind of incorporating all of MLB. And so you have a hodgepodge of different games with John Smoltz and, Jeff Francoeur, whoever that are kind of jumping into the broadcast booth to kind of bounce back and forth. But yeah, I kind of wanted to get your take on the streaming services because we did kind of allude to that a little bit yesterday and kind of get your thoughts on, is it a money grab? I mean, when you look at the NFL and the streaming services, I think there is I think it's very much like, okay, how far will these fans go? In other words, how much money are they willing to spend? And if the more we put on the streaming services, we can make even more money, as if $20 billion wasn't enough for the NFL to make per year. They continue to reach deeper and deeper into the pockets of fans. And, my co-host John Davis, again, part of our Morning Rant team, basically said it was greed. He felt like it was greed to a certain extent. What do you say about that, Coop?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think there are one of two options that would fix the whole thing. The first option would be, let's go to the college football system. Fox gets their pick, CBS gets their pick, ESPN really picks up the rest because they have so many different channels and networks to put it on.
Yeah.
And then you have like the CW that picks up the 8 o'clock ACC game that nobody cares about anyway.
Yeah.
But you can get all that from a basic cable package from YouTube TV, Sling, Fubo. Any TV provider is going to have all your college football you need.
Right.
Baseball, along with the NFL, along with the MLS, along with pretty much any other sport that's not the Hawks on NBA, where you get that local RSN, a regional sports network.
Yeah.
You got to have a Netflix account. You got to have an Apple TV account. You got to have an Amazon Prime account. I mean, it stacks up so much that over the course of a season, you're better off trying to, this month we're going to do Netflix, and then next month we'll do Apple TV, and trying to schedule all that out. I mean, I just wish we could go back to the days of just put it on the regional sports network and let it go. But I understand why, because obviously Apple TV and Netflix are trying to get into the world of sports. But they need to have an entry level for people that just want to try it.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of your traditional network TV, outside of the major, four or so, I mean, you've got some different networks that have tried to exist. Bally Sports, it keeps changing names, this, that, and the other, people buying them out. Peachtree TV, of course, here in Atlanta, some different ones, but a lot of those networks don't seem to be very self-sustaining. I don't know if financially they're not viable or whatever enough, and they end up going away and they get taken over by somebody else. And so I think a lot of you've got a lot of teams out there, a lot of colleges even to a certain extent, that are looking for homes, looking for partnership homes. I would say that if you're let's say you're a mid-major like you're Kennesaw State, for example, which, by the way, shout out to the Owls. They beat Georgia Bulldogs baseball number 7 the other day, 10-7. It was the largest win or the highest ranked win for Kennesaw State over a Division I opponent. Georgia was up to number 7, but Kennesaw State got it done. But what I was going to say is, the Owls, basically, you're an Atlanta market college, essentially. But you can't even really pick up Georgia Tech games much outside of Atlanta. I mean, 680 The Fan, carries them. But at the same time, once you get more north, you got to rely on us. I mean, the Sports Pig, we are the home of Georgia Tech and Tennessee football. So for a lot of these schools and for a lot of some of these pro entities and maybe some of the smaller sports that don't have that TV home, all of a sudden, it's hard to find those partners. And there's a lot of these networks that just aren't able to exist or sustain long term. But for the ones that are, some of these major sports leagues, like even the Atlanta Braves, I mean, the flagship team, arguably, of the city of Atlanta, having to create their own network because MLB is kind of a mess right now as far as their platforms are concerned. So I just think it's very interesting that we're kind of in that age right now, and I think it'll be interesting to see what happens moving forward.
Well, I think the Braves copied what the Rangers and Rockies had done, where they broke off. And the thing that they found is that we can charge $100 for the season, which is very reasonable, by the way, compared to what you would pay. If you were just watching the Braves and you signed up for DirecTV, you'd pay $600 over that same 6-month span, right? So they get that $100, but it goes directly to them. There's no fees that have to be paid. They're paying the broadcasters and the camera crew straight out of their own pockets. Right. So it actually is more profitable than dealing with the TV deal.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And so, we talked about the greed factor with the NFL, and I think the NFL is more so like they don't need streaming services to broadcast their games, but guess what? There's a dollar involved, so they're going to continue to push that. I was looking up the most profitable leagues last night. I think we all knew the NFL was number one by far, and this is not just in America. Obviously, this is all over the world. The NFL brings in about $20 million a year, at least they did last year. After that, in a distant second, was the NBA at around 12, and then you had MLB around 11 billion, and then you had the Premier League over, the soccer over in the UK that was around 7, and then of course the NHL was around 6 billion a year. But the NFL by far, when you look at it in comparison, and everything else after that just kind of stair step, down. One of the biggest things I was surprised about, though, was Indian cricket, like that IPL or whatever league it is. Oh my goodness, man, that thing makes more than the MLS and some of the other American sports leagues. Admittedly, I've never watched cricket, so I couldn't tell you much about it. So
why would you? First of all,
have you ever commentated cricket before? Or?
No,
I can see you up there. I can see you up there.
Lord blesses me. But look, India has so many people. It's a poor country.
It's a population.
Overall, it's going to get the people there.
Yeah. There is, believe it or not, there is actually a cricket facility, if I'm not mistaken, over just south over towards south of Fairmount, actually, going towards White, Georgia, along 411. I think there's actually a kind of a little cricket area where they actually there's like a little cricket club there, which is, I'm trying to think of the Rydell. Now, some people say Rydell, but it's Rydell. It's Rydell, Georgia. But yeah, it's over in that area. There's a little, I've been by it before. It's a cricket club. So, hey, if pickleball can catch on the way that it has here in America, then, why can't something like cricket?
I thought we had more sense, but we also let pickleball take over tennis because we're all fat and lazy.
We're lazy.
And
we
by
can't.
Us, I mean you.
Yeah, it's so many more steps to have to cover a tennis court. No, actually, and honestly, we're up against our first break, but I've been wanting to play pickleball. I just haven't done it yet. I haven't taken the plunge. I know it's just, and the funny thing about that is about, I guess it was probably, 20-something years ago. We had one of the guys that helped our broadcast crew with my old partner, Larry Prather, Chris, I know who you know, and we had Preacher Lowell Lawson, who was the chaplain for Cherokee County Sheriff's Department, and was very involved with the Hall of Fame, Cherokee County Hall of Fame, and and everything, Boys and Girls Clubs, all that stuff. And he helped us on our crew, and he told me, and this is probably, and he's, God rest his soul, Preacher Lawson passed away several years ago, but it was probably 20 years ago, I would say now, maybe even longer than that. He told me, he said, hey, man, watch out for pickleball. Like, it's super popular up north, but it's coming, and you need to come out, and this is back when I was working in TV, and he said, you need to come out and cover some pickleball. And I was like, what the heck is pickleball? I've never heard of it. Like, what are you talking about, man? This ain't nothing. But lo and behold, 20-plus years later, here we are. And now tennis courts, like you said, are being replaced by pickleball courts. And so I do want to get out and play it. It looks like a lot of fun, man. These people take it serious. There's tournaments every weekend. I know our friends, Steve and Wendy Lau, they're out there all the time. I see them on Facebook. There's a lot of local people and people in our area of the country that play pickleball. So if you're a pickleball player, man, hey, share your stories with us. Go on our social media and share them with us. Again, the Sports Pig is on Facebook and Twitter, the Morning Rant on Instagram, and also full video episodes of this show on YouTube. Of course, you can also check it out in podcast format right on our website, sportspigradio.com, and also on Podbean, Spotify, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. It's the Morning Rant, Monday through Friday, right here on the home of ESPN Radio in North Georgia on the Sports Pig app and online at sportspigradio.com.
Tired of shouting your business's name into the void and getting nothing but crickets? Your brand deserves more than awkward billboard glances and flyers lining bird cages. Right now, listeners are hearing me ramble on instead of your ad. That's a touchdown for missed opportunities and a fumble for your wallet.
Loose, recovered, Atlanta, game over.
Your ad could be here, making fans laugh, cheer, and most importantly, call you. Go to sportspigradio.com or call 678-454-9552 and get your business off the bench and into the game.
Big opinions of the big games from the big mouths.
Man, I think it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's the Morning Rant on WPGY, the Sports Pig, North Georgia's home for ESPN Radio.
Sit down.
Thirsty Thursday, back with you right inside our Carriage Kia studios on the Morning Rant. Dave Garner with you till 11 o'clock. Chuck Oliver, the college football, the king of college football, joining us at 11 with Southern Sports Today as we lead right into that show with the latest talk in the world of college football and beyond. Speaking of college sports, March Madness Sweet 16 starts tonight. With all the baseball talk going on there, nearly forgot about that. But who could forget about the Sweet 16 again tonight? Texas, Purdue, Iowa, Nebraska going at it, and of course Arkansas and Arizona, the slate for this evening. And looking at some of these games, obviously some big buzzer beaters. You and I, we left off talking. It's been since this time last week since you and I talked, and we were trying to predict the brackets. We were trying to talk about everything that was going on. So I kind of wanted to give you a chance because we talked about it earlier in the week with Billy D and with Big John Davis. But your thoughts, man, coming out of the first full weekend, rounds 1 and 2, and now into the Sweet 16 for March Madness.
Yeah, roll tide. Second of all,
here we go.
Man,
I knew that was
what a great
coming.
bracket.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about just games after games that were just awesome. I mean, Kansas St. John's was awesome. I know that it seemed like they were kind of dead in the water, but that was a great game. Arkansas High Point was awesome.
Yeah.
Iowa Florida was obviously a classic. Nebraska with their 2 wins in a row, that was great. VCU North Carolina was great.
Oh yeah.
Kentucky with the unbelievable half-court shot to then come back and win it in overtime.
Unbelievable.
Awesome game. I mean, just across the board, this has been a fantastic March Madness. It's been incredibly enjoyable. And even in the second round, some of the teams you thought there'd be a lot more separation with, these games were a team would be up by 10 points with 5 minutes left. Yeah. And then you check back on it with 2 minutes left, and they're up by 3.
Oh, yeah.
One possession game. Here we go.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Santa Clara, Kentucky was obviously a classic going back and forth there. Of course, obviously St. John's winning at the buzzer over Kansas on the lay-in there by a guy that really hadn't scored all game long. There were a lot of things coming out about that one there. So, definitely March Madness in full swing. Illinois-Houston tonight, too, by the way. I knew there was one I was missing. That's my predicted national champ right there going at it tonight. So, 2 versus 3, 1 versus 4. A lot of different matchups there tonight. And then, of course, tomorrow, St. John's Duke. Will be a fun one. Alabama and Michigan. I know you'll keep your eye on that one there. Michigan State, UConn, I think is an intriguing matchup. Tennessee and Iowa State as well. Again, the Sweet 16 rocking and rolling tomorrow night. We'll talk about that a little bit more tomorrow because we'll have some results from tonight to go off of as well. Hey, we're talking Braves again, opening day. Spring training is over with. The Grapefruit League champions, your Atlanta Braves, and we were kind of joking around about that. Obviously, we don't put a lot of stock into to that. However, I think for Braves fans that are kind of clamoring for something, to kind of hang their hat on this year with some of the injuries and things that we've had, and with the Profar news and all the, Strider with the oblique and some of the setback news that we've had already before our Braves have even taken the field for the first time. Hey, at least there's something that gives you a little bit of hope that maybe this team's going to show up this year.
Maybe. I mean, so
it doesn't sound like you're putting a lot of faith into it.
No, and here's the reason why. Baseball Reference kind of grades out how much tough the competition is in spring training compared to a normal game.
Yeah.
It's on a scale of 1 to 10, and they put it at a 7.2 for the Braves. That would average out just below AA level.
Right. Wow. Yeah. That's not good.
So
basically what you're telling me is they're playing at a rate of about the Columbus, not Braves. I'm not sure what they are down there now, but all the minor league teams are in Georgia now, so pretty much. So no more M Braves, no more Mississippi Braves, no more Columbus. I think they're the 2A, right? Yep. And then you go up to Gwinnett after that. So we got high A in Rome still, low A over in Augusta. the Green Jackets. Speaking of the Masters coming up, so as a fan, when I hear something like that, what am I supposed to? How am I supposed to interpret that?
I mean, two things. You're supposed to look more at the individual stats more than the team collective because they're rotating so many guys in. So I would recommend when you look at it, you want to look at their stats. So some bright spots in this would be Ronald Acuna Jr., Drake Baldwin, Austin Riley. Some that kind of are inflated that you probably shouldn't be super excited about. Matt Olson, Mike Yastrzemski, Jonah Heim, Michael Harris. Mm-hmm. And then one that you should be really, really concerned about is Ozzy. Yeah. Because he hit 220 against Double-A hitting. I love pitching.
Yeah, I love Ozzy. No doubt about it. And he's a big aquatic fish guy, and I see him put more videos of fish on Instagram than I do anything, and that kind of worries me. Not that people don't have hobbies and they shouldn't have hobbies and things away from the game, but I hope he can kind of refine his rhythm a little bit this year, especially from the plate. I think it was a top to bottom kind of last year couldn't generate runs, and we've talked about it plenty throughout the week right here on this program. I mean, the inability to play small ball, you're relying on nothing but long ball all the time, and I think at some point, and we said it earlier in the week, it's like a 3-point basketball team. You live by the 3, you die by the 3. I think the same thing translates to baseball to a certain extent. If you're living by the home run, you die by the home run, because this is a Braves team that when they're not hitting home runs, they're not putting up runs, period. They don't really have the ability, or they haven't shown the ability to play any kind of small ball as far as, getting a guy on base, moving a guy over late in the game when it's 1-1. They're still swinging for the fences. And in a situation like that, you don't need to do that, But bunting and things like that are kind of lost arts anyway. There's very few teams that actually can do that very effectively anymore. Everybody's swinging for the fences, and everybody loves, the long ball. I get it. Chicks dig the long ball. But, hey, you got to be able to move guys over in key situations, and that's one thing that this Braves team, to me, has really not been able to do very well over the last few years. I don't know if it's just a philosophical thing or what. But I think that regardless of what happens this year, these guys are going to have to figure out ways to get on base. At the end of the day, whether it's walks, whether it's, just being smart and patient at the plate and not trying to swing for the fences, guys like Ozzy, guys that struggled over the last year or two, they're going to have to find ways just to get on base. I'm not worried about them putting the ball over the fence, as much as just getting on base. Let Ronald, some of these other guys, drive them in as much as you can, but you got to be able to get on.
Well, and I think that when you look at what they did last year, I mean, a prime example is I've put together a comparison sheet here. I'll give you some numbers from it. Acuna last year, obviously only 49 games before he got hurt again, but hit 250 with 4 home runs. His baseball card, and I'll call it baseball card stats, which just means what he would be on average. Yeah. He bats 282 and hits about 29 home runs in a 162-game season, so way behind pace last year. Matt Olson actually did very well. He hit about 15 points above average and hit about 3 home runs over average. Matt Olson currently has the longest streak for most consecutive games played active. Austin Riley, again, he was injured, but he hit 20 points below his average, hit about a couple home runs below the average. And then Ozzy's fallen off a cliff. He hit 26 points below the average, and the power was way down as well. You're talking about like 6 home runs below the average compared to last year. So there's a lot of these guys that just need to do what they've done in their career and we'll be okay.
Yeah, and hopefully Ozzy can have a little bit of a bounce back year. I think they're definitely going to need it. Obviously, Sean Murphy's still out of the lineup. I know Jonah Heim, like you said, you like him certainly as in that kind of catching rotation until Murphy comes back. Potentially Heim frees up Drake maybe to DH a little bit. And certainly save him a little bit throughout the season physically. Obviously, catching takes a toll the way it does. I like Dubon. I think solidifying the shortstop position is certainly going to be a key for the Atlanta Braves team this year. I think the X factor, like you talked about, for better or for worse, is Yastrzemski going to be the answer in left field. I know we've kind of over the last several years we've kind of platooned that position, between obviously a lot of different guys that have kind of rotated in. So, yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what they do there. I mean, you still have Eli White. You still have some other guys hanging around. Some other guys, Dominic Smith on the infield. I mean, a couple other guys there that we don't, as Braves, casual Braves fans, you don't really know a lot about. But guys, picking up from other teams, things like this, making some of those quiet moves in the offseason there. Maybe might be one of those guys that might surprise us a little bit and emerge as maybe that DH, type of hitter. But I don't know, man. We'll see.
I think Kyle Farmer is a guy to keep an eye on for that DH spot too. Jonah Heim had a really rough spring, and he's had some seasons, but on average he's about a 225 hitter. But he's a Gold Glove catcher. Yeah. But I do think that depending on left-right situations, Kyle Farmer from the Reds is who we picked up. I think he hit 340 in spring training. He's a guy that could really come in and help alleviate some of that. Yeah, he's definitely a guy. That's a good point there, certainly. Coop bringing it right here in segment 2 on this Thursday edition of the Morning Rant. Our Atlanta Braves on the field tomorrow night, taking on the Kansas City Royals. A 3-game set there. And then, of course, back at home following that. Last year, again, the first 2 series were on the road. This year, they get the first 2 at home. Hopefully, that'll make a difference in the level of competition. The Royals, the A's here out of the gate as well. So maybe, just maybe, this Atlanta Braves team can get off to a little bit better start than they did in 2025, and hopefully on to a bigger and better things throughout the season. Hey, we're going to talk more about the Braves a little bit later in the program and tomorrow as well. Leading up to opening day, we got some other things we're going to talk about, including some NFL free agency news and a couple other little tidbits coming your way right here on this edition. This Thursday edition brought to you by your friends at the Pub in Ellijay right here on the Morning Rant here on the Sports Pig. It's the home of ESPN Radio in North Georgia on the Sports Pig app and online at sportspigradio.com.
Tired of shouting your business's name into the void and getting nothing but crickets? Your brand deserves more than awkward billboard glances and flyers lining bird cages. Right now, listeners are hearing me ramble on instead of your ad. That's a touchdown for missed opportunities and a fumble for your wallet.
Recovered, Atlanta. Game over.
Your ad could be here, making fans laugh, cheer, and most importantly, call you. Go to sportspigradio.com or call 678-454-9552 and get your business off the bench and into the game.
We bring the heat. You bring the trash talk.
Come on, man. Are you serious?
It's the Morning Rant, live on the Sports Pig app and sportspigradio.com.
And back here on a Thursday. Dave Garner with you till 11 o'clock right here on the Morning Rant. Again, March Madness, Sweet 16 starting back tonight. Full slate of ball games there. We're getting into that busy time of year where there's a lot of things going on, and it's great to have that overlap. I was talking a little bit off air as we were coming on about the Atlanta Hawks, and last night they were on ESPN. They were on national televised TV, and we were talking about all the different streaming services and so forth. But again, the Hawks were on TV last night, and so I turned it over with all the noise they've made. They've won 13 out of 14 or whatever, and so I was like, well, okay, I can't find them half the time on the dial. I don't have access to them a lot. I know they're making some noise, so I'm going to give them a watch. I mean, admittedly, I've not watched a lot of Atlanta Hawks basketball this year. And so I turn on the TV, I'm watching them, and right when I turn the game on, I mean, as soon as I flip the channel over there, I get a text from Billy D, our Tuesday co-host right here on the Morning Rant. He said, man, the Hawks are on fire. And I was like, well, they must be winning, because they were in halftime when I turned the game on, so it was in a commercial break. And so I looked up the score, and sure enough, they were up 18. It was like, 70. It was like 76 to 54.
73 to 55.
Yeah, okay, there you go. So they were up 18 basically at halftime. And I'm like, okay, well, now they're playing the Detroit Pistons, who are the top team in the East, right? But they were out 2 players. They had 2 starters that were out. I don't know if they were hurt, if they were sitting out or what have you. So a golden opportunity for the Atlanta Hawks basically to get a dub here over a team on the road in Detroit. Still a tough place to play, but nonetheless an opportunity. And I sat and I watched like the first 5 minutes of the second half of this game, and I did not see the Hawks score. I think Detroit came out on like a 16-0 run or something like that, and I turned it off. I was like, okay, well, There was your chance, to kind of lure me into this thing. Now, I got away from it. Billy was joking around that I'm the curse, and I have always said that. Anytime I watch a team that I like, I turn the game on, they fall apart. But anyway, I know curse is a strong word. But so I turned it off. I started watching something. I was watching Buffalo Sabres hockey, man. Whatever, okay? And then my stepson comes home, and he's talking about the Hawks. He's like, oh, yeah, what were they doing? So he wanted to watch the game, and it got down to the end. It was like 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. So I begrudgingly turned it back over there. And, it was nip and tuck. They had 2 different times they had like 5-point leads late in the game, but couldn't close it out. Ends up going to overtime. Hawks had the last shot, couldn't make it. They end up going to overtime. I'm like, man, this is pitiful. They blow an 18-point lead. An 18-point lead, by the way, in 7 minutes of the third quarter became a 2-point deficit. All right? So I'm sitting there thinking, this is why nobody takes this organization seriously. But to their credit, they came back. They did win in overtime. Detroit had 2 shots in the final couple seconds, had a putback attempt from about 4 feet out, but the guy was rushed, and it clanked off the side of the rim. It fell short, and the Hawks hang on. 130-129, a 1-point win last night in Detroit. So congratulations. Again, the Hawks did hang on, but it was so frustrating to watch them just blow a big lead that fast. But they did end up winning the game, so they did show a lot of resiliency. 14 out of 15 now. They're 11-1, I know, over their last 12. They're up to number 5 now. They've basically taken over the tie break from Toronto for that 5th spot. Now, realistically, they're not going to move up any further from there because you've got Cleveland in front of them. It's about 4 games better. There's only like 8 to play or something like that. So, again, if they could potentially, though, hang on to that 5 or 6 spot, that would get them out of the play-in and get them into some serious basketball and maybe, potentially have a decent series, to work with and not have a one-game type, loser go home, type scenario, because that's just not where you want to be, as we've talked about in the NFL or in the NBA, excuse me.
Yeah, and Jalen Johnson, big night for him, 27 points, 12 boards, and then Dyson Daniels had the 13 boards. Jalen Johnson, 12 assists. One of the things I know people were concerned about with the loss of Trae Young in the trade was who was going to be the distributor to some of these shooters on the wings. And Jalen Johnson's done a good job of that, as well as also partially replacing his offensive production, and he's not a liability on the defensive side.
Right,
so, it ended up being a pretty smart decision for the Hawks, obviously, as we've talked about. Since the Trae Young trade, they've looked like a completely different basketball team.
Yeah.
But, to your point, the Hawks are one of those teams that is kind of a microcosm of everything. They're up by 15 and a half, and then, I'm kind of the same way. Watching the game, I'm like, all right, cool, pretty comfortable halftime lead. I'm going to flip over. And then I picked up my phone. I have the live alerts, and it says the Pistons are up by 4.
Right, yeah.
Did you guys shoot 0% from the floor?
Yeah. Well, basically, over the first 7 minutes of the third quarter, they did. And, Detroit was on like a 20-2 run, I think at one point in that game. But credit the Hawks, though, man. Like I said, they showed a lot of resiliency to get back in that thing. And, they were able to wrap it up. Hey, as we talked about, March Madness going into another weekend, going to be a lot of fun. We're going to talk more about that on tomorrow's show. We had a conversation earlier this morning over on our sister station. One of the things that the 101.1 The Pulse is doing is they're talking about walk-up songs for Major League Baseball. And they asked me what I would come up to. Now, you got to keep in mind, over on our sister station, it's country, it's faith-based. So me and my hip-hop world, right, I'm like, hey, I'm going with T.I., let them know, right, man? I mean, the new T.I. is just like the old T.I., right? And I grew up DJing, so I like to think I've got a kind of a general knowledge of a lot of different genres. I know you're very much the same way. For a guy that's much younger than I am, you're an old soul when it comes to music. You have a lot of different genres and things that you listen to. You're kind of like me. You're all over the board. So what would the Golden Boy walk-up music be for your first Major League at bat? What are you going with?
Yeah, I would steal from my boxing days. I went with Left Hand Free by Alt J.
Okay, yeah.
Being a southpaw fighter.
Right.
For baseball, it probably doesn't work that well because I'm a right-handed hitter, even though I throw left.
Yeah.
So I think I would do Rain When I Die by Alice in Chains.
Okay,
it's a heavy riff.
I know you're a big Alice in Chains guy. I know you're a big Eagles guy. So yeah, you're all over the board like me. So I like it, man. I like it. By the way, and there's a trivia question. I want to see if anybody gets it out there, and I'll give you a shot, Coop. Not putting you on the spot because I honestly did not get it on the first try. And I'm trying to remember what this is. So there's only been like one major leaguer in history, a switch hitter that's been able to hit over 400 home runs, or 450 home runs, and have an average over 350 or something for their career. Something to that extent. I may not get it completely right, so I'm not expecting but that was kind of the trivia question. Was like who is a major league player that's hit 450 home runs, combined as a switch hitter, and also has been able to maintain over, I think it was like a 320 or 340 batting average or something like that. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, well, Ted Williams, but no, he was just a lefty. Babe Ruth could kind of hit from both sides of the plate, but that was not the right answer. Some people picked Hank Aaron, but it was an Atlanta Brave. It was.
Yeah, Chipper Jones, I would say.
You got it, man. You nailed it. Congratulations,
okay,
man.
Yeah.
The golden boy with the golden answer.
Because I didn't think he hit that high of an average, but if you're adding the left and right side together, then I think he gets like 329 for a career, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, if you add both of them together. So yeah, hitting around 330, hitting over 300 for a career with over 450 home runs, being a switch hitter left and right side of the plate. So yeah, so our very own Chipper Jones, man, who is lives fairly local, to us, and so again. But that was not my first choice. It wasn't my second choice, honestly. And I kind of realized, well, wait a minute. Of course, now granted, they were kind of leading me down the wormhole there. As the sports director, I felt kind of embarrassed. I should have known that. But put me on the spot there. But you picked it up, man. So congratulations. Yeah, no, Chipper Jones, man, one of those guys that, and we all know Chipper. And being in Atlanta, of course, we see that. We know what Chipper meant to the organization. We know what, he meant to this Atlanta Braves team and the production and all that kind of stuff. But, admittedly, I wouldn't have put him in like that kind of elite category of like being the only player essentially to do that, in Major League Baseball.
It's definitely what I would call like you get numb to it, right? I mean, as an Alabama fan, I think we got numb to some of the things that we saw on Saturdays. And now that it's not here, you kind of look back and say, oh, wow, that actually was the pinnacle.
Right.
And I think we do the same thing with guys like Chipper Jones, Tom Glavine, Smoltz, all those guys where, Chipper rolled out there and just went 3 out of 4 most nights and 2 of 4, the other nights.
Yeah.
And ho-hum, he was a all-star 11 times and whatever. That's just Chipper. But it's not until you actually stop and look back at his career and realize how great he was that you kind of get that rosy retrospection where it's like, I probably should have paid more attention to the greatness when he was here.
Absolutely, yeah. Again, Chipper definitely I was thinking, okay, well, third baseman, okay, well, Terry Pendleton, this, that, and the other, but yeah, and who he did switch hit some, but Chipper, man, definitely bringing it right here. As we continue our Braves talk, again, going down memory lane here as the Braves get set for opening day tomorrow at Truist in Atlanta, opening up the season against the Kansas City Royals. One of the guys that you and I talked about, Dieter Fuentes, did indeed make the opening day roster. So, again, any surprises going position by position that you found on this roster? Did you think it kind of played out the way you thought it would?
Osvaldo Beto making the opening day roster. Assume he's going to slot into some kind of rotational piece.
Right.
I did do some homework, and I put together who I thought the rotation would be comprised of.
Yeah.
Which is Chris Sale, Ronaldo Lopez, which, by the way, in Lopez's last start on Tuesday of this week, his fastball was 5 miles per hour below what it was earlier in spring training.
Wow. Okay.
So everybody just prepare yourself mentally.
Yeah.
Grant Holmes,
that's significant.
Bryce Elder, and Jose Suarez.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where does Beto fit in that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Does he at all? We'll see. But that was really the only surprise that I saw.
Yeah, and Bryce Elder, the first time that he's actually made the opening day roster for the Braves. I mean, he was an all-star one year, but he got called up, after the season started the last several years. So this is the first year technically that Bryce Elder will open up as on the opening day roster for the Atlanta Braves, and a guy that I remember from our days in Rome. I remember Bryce Elder being in Rome and calling his name. So yeah, a lot of these guys have materialized. They're on the big club now, and so it'll be fun to see what all happens right there. Hey, we're up against our final break. When we come back, we're going to dive briefly into some NFL news, some free agency stuff going on around the league, and we'll also tie in some other things going on locally in the world of sports right here on the Morning Rant. It's a Thirsty Thursday edition. We are the home of ESPN Radio in North Georgia on the Sports Pig app and online at sportspigradio.com.
Tired of shouting your business's name into the void and getting nothing but crickets? Your brand deserves more than awkward billboard glances and flyers lining bird cages. Right now, listeners are hearing me ramble on instead of your ad. That's a touchdown for missed opportunities and a fumble for your wallet.
Recovered, Atlanta, game over.
Your ad could be here, making fans laugh, cheer, and most importantly, call you. Go to sportspigradio.com or call 678-454-9552 and get your business off the bench and into the game.
Morning Grind with Pork Rinds.
Welcome to the show.
It's the Morning Rant, weekday mornings from 10 to 11 on 98.1, 93.7, and 101.1 on the H2 dial. WPGY, the Sports Pig.
Dave Garner back here on a Thirsty Thursday edition of the Morning Rant with the Golden Boy Will Cooper. Hey, we're taking right up till 11 o'clock. Chuck Oliver coming up here in about 15 minutes. The king of college football with Southern Sports Today right here on the Sports Pig, your home for ESPN Radio in North Georgia. Hey, we've got some high school news to talk about. Again, we talk about everything from high school sports to regional sports to professional sports, you name it. We're going to talk briefly about a couple NFL moves, particularly pertaining to your Atlanta Falcons. But we do have some high school coaching news we do want to pass along. Woodstock High School, again, we talked about a couple weeks ago with you, Coop, Coach Devine taking a job with IMG Academy down in Bradenton as the head coach of the postgraduate program right there. But it does look like Woodstock has made a decision on a new head football coach, so we wanted to pass that along.
Yeah, promoting offensive coordinator Justin Pierce. He's been in the county for a while. I think for Woodstock, they were in a kind of a no-win situation. That hire happened pretty late in the hiring cycle in Georgia. This wasn't a December decision. This was a, late February decision for the Wolverines to try and figure out. But they've obviously given Justin Pierce the nod. I think he's going to do a fine job. The program thankfully has been rebuilt, and he was part of that rebuild, so he's aware of all of that. And again, friend of the program. We've known him for a long time. He's again been in county for a long time with stints at Cherokee and things like that. So I'm excited to see what he does. Yeah,
we talk a lot here. As much as you're I kind of call you our Braves insider, you really are our high school insider. So for folks that are out there listening that want to know what's going on in the area as far as high school sports, hey, we incorporate as much as we can. So as we kind of climb closer to football season and kind of get into that mode and spring practice and that sort of stuff, we will begin to kind of gear the conversation in that direction and make sure that we include any and all team and, coaching news around our North Georgia area. I counted it up. I mean, basically, if you look at our signal and kind of where we serve, we've got, around 40-something high schools, basically, that we kind of follow and keep up with, from Cobb County to Bartow County to, Murray County, Gordon County, Cherokee County, Whitfield County, Pickens, Gilmer, you name it, Fannin. So, again, a lot of different high schools when you start kind of adding up those areas there. And so we want to do our best to kind of keep up with that. But, yeah, good addition, certainly Woodstock High School. And we're not going to shy away from baseball talk as well. I mean, we've got one of the top-rated teams in the country just down the highway at Etowah High School in Woodstock, right off of Town Lake, man. Etowah is one of the, I want to say they are one of the nation's top-ranked high school baseball programs right now.
Yeah, look, I mean, they're I believe they're second in the state of Georgia right now. They were either ahead or behind of Lee County Woodward Academy.
Woodward, yeah.
Last I looked. And Etowah has a history of doing that. They've won a couple of state titles, including one over Woodstock. Two schools that are 2 miles away.
Right.
For whatever reason, we talked about a couple of weeks ago how ladies basketball, girls basketball in Cherokee County and in the northern Georgia part is so strong. For some reason, there's a little pocket there of Pope, Etowah, Woodstock that have fantastic baseball teams, and Cambridge isn't far behind them either over in Fulton County.
Yeah, and I know Lassiter traditionally is another one of those kind of in that area that you're talking about that's been good. And so, yeah, you get into the North Fulton schools, Cambridge and some of those folks definitely there as well. But, yeah, Etowah and Woodstock, 2 schools separated, as you said, by just a couple of miles. And, again, breaking into some of the news here today on the Morning Rant. So, again, that's the biggest thing, man. We want to be your home for everything, man. I mean, high school, regional, college, professional, you name it. And, again, a little bit of high school news breaking there is the Woodstock Wolverines have a new head man at the football position there. We'll talk more about that as we get further into spring practice with our high school insider, the Golden Boy, Mr. Will Cooper. Hey, let's talk some NFL free agency real quick. Again, the Falcons adding a veteran quarterback to their QB room. Trevor Siemian comes over, where he will join, of course, Tua and Michael Penix Jr., and then, of course, Brian Robinson, running back as well. The big news really breaking yesterday, Travis Kelce, to me, it was kind of a surprise signing a 3-year extension with the Chiefs. I mean, I really thought this past year, when you look at the way he was kind of lumbering around really over the last 2 seasons, kind of felt like this was it. Like this last year was maybe going to be the swan song. He's in the relationship with Taylor Swift. You figure, they would have just kind of went away and lived happily ever after, got married and all that stuff. But no, he says yes to a 3-year extension. So Travis Kelce, again, staying in the league, it looks like, at least for the immediate future. And so a lot of moving and shaking continuing as we hit this new league year in the NFL.
Yeah, Travis Kelce, the bad news bears of tight ends. I mean, last year, he looked like you out there running around. I mean, knees were gone.
Shoulders,
I wanted to run the 40-yard dash again.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I'd probably run like a 6 flat.
If they ran him through the combine right now, I'd hate to see what they think. And, he's a guy, obviously, he's a first ballot type guy to me, obviously. I mean, it goes without saying what he's done and what he's meant to this team. But to John's point, we were talking about it, obviously there's a dynamic there that he really liked. Obviously, he's very tight with Mahomes, of course. They pal around off the field. But again, maybe some offensive line help has made a difference. Maybe there's something there. I think that the Chiefs, under the current structure, maybe he steps away, but I don't know. It tells me there's something there. It may just be money. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of ego that plays into it when folks kind of get to the twilight of their career, and it may just have something to do with that. But nonetheless, I thought it was kind of a surprising move.
Yeah, trying to chase the shadow of Tony Gonzalez, which he'll never catch. Wants to put his name up there with some of the greats. And again, as you mentioned, first ballot Hall of Famer. But I don't know if are we ever going to call him the greatest tight end of all time? We absolutely will not. Does he want to be considered in that conversation? And part of it is they paid him $54 million for the next 3 years. Yeah. And I think you and I both would agree that for whatever service they offered, we would do it for $54 million a year.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Yeah, absolutely. I think Kelce's probably, I definitely think he's a top 5. If you look at some of the people that have been around, when you look at, Antonio Gates and the Tony Gonzalez's and so forth of the world and, folks like that, I could definitely see Kelce obviously being in that conversation for sure. But there's always going to be debates about that. We talked about the flag football, the Fanatics flag football tournament, and Team USA, Darryl Doucette, coming out saying, hey, I'm a better quarterback than Patrick Mahomes. Everybody kind of laughed at him. I'm not saying he would go out on an NFL field and prove anybody wrong. But to his credit and to Team USA, to their credit, they were able to beat the teams that had all the NFL guys on them last weekend. Fanatics, of course, putting that on as kind of a precursor, build-up, if you will, to flag football being part of the Olympics during the next games there. So, I thought it was interesting to see kind of those NFL guys, and then Team USA, the non-NFL guys going out there, and it was Team USA that won all their games.
Yeah, look, Team USA, they got some real speedy, shifty guys, which is the key, more than size or any of that. There's no blocking. There's not any
no
real
trenches.
tackling.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, so but it was very interesting to watch some of the dynamics of that game for sure. So we'll see. I mean, I don't feel like we have a total capital on it like I thought we would. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some of these really good sprinters from some of these other countries that we talk about would also make a very good flag football team.
Well, the biggest thing about it, too, is you got to wonder how much the league's going to embrace it as well with the players being out there. I mean, is there a chance somebody's going to tear up a knee and miss the season? It's like, because I said this early in the week right here on the show. I said, if you're a Bengals fan and you see Joe Burrow out there trying to put the hit stick on a defender like he did a couple times, I don't know if I really want to see that from my quarterback, that the season's kind of depending on him being in the lineup week in and week out. So, I mean, I don't know,
Yeah, especially when it comes to some of the injury history with Joe Burrow.
Yes.
I'm not sure I want to see him dancing around out there too much, trying to avoid some French Olays.
Right, yeah, exactly. What I want to know is how many people are going to get confused this year in fantasy football with B. Robinson, running back from the Atlanta Falcons, thinking it's Bijan when it's Brian
Robinson.
Instead, there's already been video. And why would you pick a fantasy football team this early in the season, first of all? But apparently there have already been some drafts out there that have gone viral for people that are trading, making trades. My son even told me that in their little league, one of the guys actually traded him or said, "Hey, I'll give you, on the paper it says B. Robinson, running back, Falcons, for a second-round draft pick." And he was like, "Yeah, absolutely," thinking it was Bijan. That they're going to talk about that so much that nobody's going to be able to make that mistake. But right now, if you really want to get somebody, that's the way to do it. Offer him up, B. Robinson, Brian Robinson, for like a second-round pick, and they'll jump all over that and not realize what they're even doing.
Yeah, Brian Robinson, Roll Tide, another guy that kind of got lost in translation. That's kind of been his career. Yeah. He was in a running back room with Najee Harris, and I think Josh Jacobs was also there at the same time. Very serviceable back. He's been very serviceable in San Francisco, kind of helping with the load with Christian McCaffrey.
Right.
I think it's a good pickup, especially knowing that you lost, his name escapes me at the moment, but
Tyler Algier,
Algier. I think that's a solid pickup. And again, Brian Robinson's the bell cow. So if you need somebody to come in on 3rd and 2 and throw a block, Brian Robinson's a big body that can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Levante David retiring after 14 seasons with Tampa. Max Crosby with a, quote, degenerative issue, end quote, why the Ravens backed out of that trade. And we talked about that a lot yesterday with Big John Davis. We'll talk about that more next week when John comes back on the program. But a lot of things moving and shaking right now. Again, teams continuing to bring in guys that they hope will help their teams. The Falcons trying to boost their receiver room a little bit, and now their quarterback room by bringing Simeon over to have a little bit more veteran leadership as well, along with Tua and Michael Penix Jr. We're about out of time on this Thirsty Thursday edition of the program, but Will Cooper going to join me tomorrow as well. We will dive in even deeper with our Atlanta Braves tomorrow being opening day, so we're going to have a lot of Braves talk tomorrow. We are the new North Georgia home of your Atlanta Braves right here on the SportsPig app and online at sportspigradio.com. And once again, we appreciate you guys listening in. You can hear all 162 with all the talk about, TV and everything else and where to watch the Braves. Well, one thing's for sure. If you're in your car or if you're, listening, if you're not in front of your TV, you can hear all 162 between us and our sister station, 101.1 The Pulse. So, again, download the app. Take us wherever you go. You can Bluetooth it right in your vehicle, and you won't miss a minute of Atlanta Braves action this year.
Yeah, very excited for that. Excited to be able to listen to you guys on the app and terrestrially as well. It's always nice to be able to know I can go on a hike, go trout fishing, get up in the mountains, and I'll still have access to the games.
Absolutely. And, we talked a lot today about high school. We have talked some stuff about high school, NFL free agency. tonight. Again, March Madness, the Sweet 16 back at it. So we're going to bring that back into the program tomorrow morning as we get set for our Friday happy hour edition of the show tomorrow, live at 10 a.m. right here on the Morning Rant. Hey, once again, catch us on social media. Again, the Sports Pig on Facebook and Twitter. Also, the Morning Rant on Instagram and on YouTube. You can also listen to the podcast version of the show. It's uploaded daily right to our website. Scroll down the homepage at sportspigradio.com and listen to the latest episodes. We keep them archived on there for about the last 4 or 5 days or so and kind of rotate them out. But a lot of things happening, a lot of things moving and shaking, so you don't want to miss a moment. And we can also be heard on a lot of the podcast formats as well, Spotify, Podbean, and all that stuff. Out of time today, Chuck Oliver up next, the king of college football with Southern Sports Today. You've been listening to the Morning Rant. As always, if you don't know, you better ask somebody. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Take care.